Hey y'all, thanks for coming to this talk, 20 Android CI Nuggets in 20 minutes. My name is Ben Boral. I'm a solutions engineer at Bitrise. Bitrise is a mobile DevOps company. We do CI/CD and other cool things related to how you build and deploy your software. So my goal today, well, we're in California. We're in the home of the gold rush. So I hope that you can take some golden nuggets home today. That's my goal, is at least one or two nuggets you can take away from this. And basically, I work with a bunch of different customers at Bitrise, and I get to see how all these different companies do things with their CI setup. And so I see creative uses, and also at Bitrise we're focused on how we can help mobile developers with their process, and so we come up with our own ideas. So I'm going to share with you 20 of these in 20 minutes. I'm going to do my best to stay in time. So let's dive in. And it's 2024. We have to do AI. So we're going to get that out of the way. So I opened a pull request on the Signal app. It's like the encrypted messaging app. And I made some dumb changes to their crypto package. And so I don't really know anything about crypto. So what I did is I wrote a Bitrise, actually one of my colleagues did this, wrote a Bitrise step in our CI process. And it looks at the diff, and it says, hey, LLM, can you do a code review on this diff and provide some suggestions? They're not horrible. They're a little too general. You can tune the prompt to get something better, but especially if you're like a solo dev and you still want to have something looking at your code, it's kind of a fun thing that you can do. So let's look real quick at how I set that up. So we're going to go to Bitrise. We're going to look at the workflow that I defined here. And we have our little code review GPT. So what we've done is we give some inputs like your auth to talk to GitHub, auth to talk to OpenAI. And then we have our prompt here. And so you can tune this however you want. Maybe you're curious to get feedback on one specific aspect of your pull requests. Maybe you just want something general like this. All right, so that's number one. Number two is related to performance. So there's first rule of CI is that it has to be reliable. And then once you have something which is reliable, now you can start to look at speed. And speed is important because you don't want to wait. You don't want to wait for your feedback from your CI system when you open that PR, especially if you have like a hot fix that you need to get out or something like that. So your whole team can be more productive if you have faster builds. So if you have not benchmarked your CI builds on different machine types, that might be something that you should look into. This is an example, again, building the Signal app and using this 4-core Linux runner takes 27 minutes, using 16-core, 10 minutes, and Gradle is really good about running all of its different subtasks in parallel on the different CPU cores that are available. This is something that we do at Bitrise. This is all running on like commodity cloud compute, but we're always benchmarking the different offerings out there so that we can find the right thing that's fast for the money. Here's something kind of interesting. Built the same app. This time I built it on the 4-core Linux machine, 16-core Linux machine. Then I built it on Apple Silicon, and actually running this on an M1 Max machine, even though it's an Android build, it's just running Gradle. Saw a really nice result, super fast build using that M1 Max machine. So something to try out. Your iOS teams probably already have a bunch of build machines already set up. All right, so this is another fun one that some CI systems support, and that's this annotation here on my build. So I just put in some sort of generic information about, details about the commit, but if your CI system supports this annotation functionality, there might be interesting information or useful information that you could publish onto this page. It might be like your code coverage percentage, or any sort of details about the diff, what subdirectories changed. Annotations are kind of a sleeper feature within Bitrise, and I think they're kind of fun and useful. Here's something cool that you can do with it. So I talked about how Gradle is pretty good about using the CPU cores. So I'm going to run this annotation, and it's going to take a second to start up, but I wrote a little script. It uses a Linux command line tool called mpstat that gives me information about the actual machine utilization metrics. And so what we're going to see in a few seconds is a live updating annotation that tells me which CPU cores are being used and how much they're being used. And so I can kind of get an idea of how efficient my build is. Let's see how we're going here. Yeah, I'm going to take a water break while we wait. So that's kind of fun one, and there are tons of little command line tools that give you all sorts of information. So I was playing around with a different one that actually told me like which processes are running and what their resource consumption is. So something to experiment with, especially like sometimes like I see builds, I'm like, is that hanging? I don't know if that build is hanging. Maybe it's just working really hard, so I can get a live update of that. All right, next one, use a build cache. So, whenever we're doing builds, we can cache dependencies, right? I call that dependency caching, where you're just saving off directories or files from the file system and reusing them in the future build. But you can also save off build intermediate files. And so here you can see that running on that 4-core Linux machine, I got a 27-minute build, but then if I connect it up to a build cache where Gradle gets to reuse work that happened in a previous build, cuts that down to 4 minutes. And so that second recommendation I gave, try faster machines. Well, maybe you can stick to less expensive infrastructure if you use a build cache. All right, so the critical path. So, right, whenever Gradle does its build, and I'm sure there are going to be a bunch of Gradle talks at the conference, what it's doing is it's creating a graph of all the subtasks that need to run. And really what we care about in terms of getting fast feedback on that CI build, we care about the longest path. And at Bitrise, we call that the critical path. And so Gradle stores a lot of that information in the .gradle file of your project. And so we can pull that information out and we can see, okay, this is the longest path of tasks that are running, and this is how they're running in order. Now, the first many of them were up to date, which is basically Gradle saying, I don't need to do anything here, I'm good. But then we get to this package play prod canary. That one took 22 seconds. And it was executed, and I would love if I could get a cache hit on that and speed my build up further. And so I'm able to see, okay, well, it was executed because signing config data .signing config data .store file root .android, whatever, has changed. And if I actually go and I look here at my build, so I ran a little build that I took a checksum of this file. I ran it twice, and I saw that the checksum changed, right? And so that's why Gradle's like, well, oh, it didn't match, so I need to rerun this step because I just can't reuse the inputs from last time. And that's because I actually never set a debug.keystore file in this particular workflow. If I had set that, it would be the same from build to build, and then I would get a cache hit, and my build would be really fast. I would save that 22 seconds. All right, the next, kind of like annotations, is HTML reports. So some CI systems, including Bitrise, we support showing HTML files, attaching those into your build so you can display more information about that build. So here I put some info about the build, and just because I love Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke in the same movie, I put their picture in the HTML file because you can do that in HTML. So, you know, why would you want to show an HTML file? Well, let's go to our next one. So we can look at something like the app size of our app, and Spotify has a really cool tool called Ruler. Also, Emerge Tools is down there in the exhibition hall, so you can talk to them. They do something similar. But this is a little Gradle plugin that I can attach to my project, and it'll give me like information about this kind of a small screen here on my little laptop, but proper screen you see more. You can see like, okay, you know, this APK that I built, you know, how much of it is from my actual source code? How much of it is from resource files? And I can optimize that size because my users, they don't want to download some giant app, right? They want it really small and quick to download. So generating a report like that on every build, or maybe it's the Android Gradle plugin linter that you want to run every time and get that report. Whenever you're building on Gradle, you will have the fastest possible build if your project is architected in a horizontal way, not in a vertical way, right? Like, say, using lots of modules that are decoupled from each other. And you can use a library called GraphAssert, which is another Gradle plugin. And you can say, hey, I want to run some check on my module graph. And I don't want it any deeper than 4. Or I don't want it any deeper than 5, right? And GraphAssert will fail your build if it's deeper than whatever you set it to. So I think that's a really cool little check that you can run. And so if somebody makes a change that is really going to have a harmful effect on build times once it gets merged in, you can catch that early. Okay, I'm 3 minutes behind schedule. I got to go fast. So the next is related to that module graph. There's a library called GraphViz, and I'm just using GraphViz to actually visualize it. Now, if you have a gigantic app with like thousands of modules, you're not going to be able to read this. But if you have like something tidy, like Signal is really nice and tidy here, it's actually, you know, understandable. So you can make a visualization of that. All right, next one. So, all right, this build that I ran here, if we look at the steps, one of the things I had to do, I had to install some dependencies. And I had wasted build time doing that. Well, that's dumb. So I can pre-install tools on a Docker image, right? And so that's what I did here. I used the Bitrise base image, and then I just installed GraphViz on top of that, and I'm using that as my environment for running these builds. So I can save time there. Whenever you're building that Docker image, be sure to use a feature called Docker layer caching. This is, we'll just go over here. You can see Docker build -- help, and they have an option called cache from. So essentially when you build a Docker image, it's composed of layers. Every line in your Docker file, we can look at my Docker file here. Every command here, 1, 2, 3, 4, is its own layer. And if I make a change here, here's my change. then I can reuse everything that happened before it, right? That's Docker layer caching. So we have, in Bitrise, we have a little Docker build step, and it has automatic integration with our dependency cache so that you can just automatically cache those layers, and it's faster to then build new versions of your Docker image. Okay, run local builds. So whenever you're doing CI, it's really annoying to like, okay, I want to make a change to my CI YAML file. I'm gonna make that change, and I'm gonna push it up to remote, and I'm gonna click refresh on my CI until I see the build. Oh, and then it didn't run because my YAML was misconfigured or whatever. So if your CI tool has a CLI that you can run locally, then you can do things like, oh, I want to see which workflows are in my YAML file. These are my workflows. I want to make a change to build APK. Here it is, build APK. And so I'm going to make my change, and I'm going to validate it. All right, good, my config is valid. And I'm going to run that workflow locally. So I can iterate really quickly, make a change to my YAML, run it locally. Okay, that did what I wanted. Cool, I'm going to push it up. Didn't do what I want. Let me make a change, run it. So we'll just let that run. All right. Now you push it up. It didn't work. What the heck went wrong? Check if your CI tool supports SSHing into your build environment. So here I can rerun with remote access, and I can SSH into the box and actually like get a really good idea of what's going on in there. Getting towards the CD part of things is if you don't like have a nice way to browse all of the different builds that you've generated for your tester team to go and find what they want, that might be something that you could put together for them. They would probably really appreciate it. So whether you do that at Bitrise, there are tons of tools that can do this for you. And then you could also make like a really cool little download link for them. So here we have that in Bitrise. And one of the things that we do is we can put this, the one you're looking at right here is behind a login. So if you work at like a bank, you probably need that. But maybe you work at a consultancy and you want to share some in-process build with one of your customers who does not have a Bitrise account. You can also generate a public install page. So here, what we're doing is we're generating like a ridiculously unpredictable long, hash of a bunch of stuff. So it's not like anybody's going to discover this, but it's publicly available link, and you can send this link to your tester, and they can have a look at the build before it gets distributed. And you could even like put some automation in your CI that posts the link to the install page directly into your pull request. So here we can see that. So now like your product manager can just like go and access it. And maybe your product manager is not in the GitHub pull request, but you could do the same into like a Jira ticket. Okay, automate publishing to Google Play. I hope everybody's doing this, but if you're still manually like dragging and dropping into the Google Play console, they have a nice REST API, so you can publish directly into that. You can update the rollout percentage. Bitrise also has a release management tool. We're not going to look at that, and there are a number of other vendors here today in the exhibition hall that have similar things, so that you can sort of automate this whole process of publishing into the stores. And okay, last one. Collect all of your test execution history. And then you can do things like figure out what your flakiest tests are. And then whenever you have time available to address tech debt, now you know this is a really bad test. Like I should probably spend my time on this test rather than on this test. So collect, okay, yeah, thank you. Collect that data. And then I'm gonna give y'all a bonus 21. Use Bitrise, come talk to me. I give you a coupon code for, I think it might be 1 year free access. So if you're interested, come talk to me. And thanks everybody for coming along. I hope you got a nugget here.